Welcome, everyone, to today's explainer. Okay, get ready, because we're jumping right into a story with an absolutely wild premise. Picture this. You're a totally broke law student. You're constantly stressing over your next meal, right? And then suddenly you wake up with this bizarre superpower. You can literally see everyone's bank account balance floating directly above their heads in glowing numbers. I know, it sounds crazy, but the real hook of our explainer today, it's not just a superpower itself. It's what our protagonist finds out when he looks at the one person in his class that everyone assumes is the absolute poorest.
Okay, let's dive into this. The contrast here is just staggering. Our protagonist, Lunai, looks in the mirror and sees his own balance hovering there, a depressing negative 135 yuan. The guy is barely scraping by. Meanwhile, he's looking at the rich bullies on campus, bragging about a few thousand yuan. But then his eyes land on Sheng Jiao. Now, she's known around campus as the most destitute, poverty-stricken student in the whole university. But the number floating above her head? 30 billion yuan. That's a 3 followed by 10 zeros. To put that into perspective, that is basically like winning a 5 million yuan lottery every single day for 16 years straight. No way, right?
And this perfectly highlights the sheer irony of the whole situation. Despite having 30 billion yuan literally hovering above her, Sheng Jiao is living this incredibly frugal, almost extreme fake poor lifestyle. We're talking wearing the same few sets of clothes that have been washed so many times they've completely lost their color. She survives on the highest tier of government scholarships meant for the genuinely needy. If she isn't eating plain boiled buns for her 3 daily meals, she's getting the absolute cheapest vegetable buns. She even drinks 2 massive bowls of the free cafeteria soup just to fill herself up. So seeing this billionaire heiress navigate campus life like she's counting pennies, it completely short-circuits our protagonist's brain.
Section 1. Defending the undercover heiress. So that wild contrast sets the stage, but the plot really kicks into high gear right here. The most arrogant girl on campus, Lin Wei, and her wealthy boyfriend corner Sheng Jiao. Why? Because a few drops of milk tea splashed onto Lin Wei's limited edition designer shoes. And instead of, a normal reaction, these bullies decide to publicly humiliate Sheng Jiao. The boyfriend pulls out a wad of cash, throws it on the floor and says, quote, "Keep this 2,000 yuan. It will feed you for a year. Today onwards, stay away from my girlfriend. Got it?" They actually demand 80,000 yuan in damages, or she has to get on her knees and clean the shoes. The crowd is laughing, and meanwhile, Sheng Jiao's floating 30 billion balance starts glowing blindingly bright, almost like it's reacting to the sheer insults of it all. And that's exactly when Luan Nai, despite his own negative balance, decides he's had enough.
He steps right in front of Sheng Jiao, shielding her from the crowd, and just brilliantly uses his law student knowledge to completely dismantle these bullies. It's like watching a masterclass. First, he squats down, picks up the thrown cash, and hands it back to the rich kid with this fake professional smile, casually noting that throwing money at people is actually illegal and, frankly, tacky. Second, he points out that milk tea can be wiped off with a 50-cent wet tissue. It needs 0 dry cleaning. Third, he loudly declares that demanding 80,000 yuan for this is a textbook case of extortion, which, by the way, carries a prison sentence. And finally, he whips out his phone, hits record, and calmly gives them a choice. Apologize to Sheng Jiao, go to the student affairs office, or deal with the police. The bullies are totally outmatched by logic and the law. They turn pale and just storm off. Lonai publicly humiliates them while perfectly shielding our undercover billionaire.
Section 2. The billionaire strikes back.
Let's move to this next part and see how this builds. Because you might think the story ends there with a heroic save, right? Well, when you mess with entitled bullies, no good deed goes unpunished. The immediate fallout hits our protagonist hard, kicking off this rapid, completely absurd sequence of events. On day 1, the bully's family uses their influence as shareholders to get Lunai fired from his part-time campus cafe job. He's devastated, honestly. He needs that 500 yuan a month just to survive. That afternoon, a quiet Sheng Jiao finds him sulking and hands him a thermos of this incredibly delicious, homemade braised pork as a thank you gift. But then, by day 2, Lunai's phone is just blowing up. The cafe manager is begging him to come back. And why? Because an anonymous buyer with a surname Sheng literally bought the entire coffee shop overnight, kicked out the bully's family, and specifically demanded that Lunai be rehired and promoted to assistant manager with a raise. Yeah, she secretly bought a whole business just to fix a minor inconvenience in his life. So obviously, a secret like that can't stay hidden forever. The angry bully Lin Wei eventually digs up Sheng Jiao's true identity and tries to publicly expose her as the heir to the massive Shenhua group. Sheng Jia shuts that down real quick with a terrifying threat from her legal team. But the actual mic drop moment happens between her and Luan, when he finally asks her why she went to such extreme lengths, buying a cafe and risking her own secret just to protect him. She doesn't beat around the bush at all. She looks at him, totally serious, and says, "Because I want to have you." It's just this shockingly blunt confession from a girl who commands billions.
But before we get into the romance side of things, we really have to understand the thematic core of this story. Like, why was the heir to a massive business empire pretending to be a penniless student eating vegetable buns in the first place? Well, it turns out this is the Shenghua family tradition. Every single heir, before taking over the empire, has to live for 1 full year as an ordinary person with absolutely zero financial support. The father's philosophy here is pretty striking. He believes that only when you're truly hungry and only when you experience people looking down on you will you understand the true value of money and the harsh realities of human nature. It's this hardcore character-building exercise designed to completely weed out greed and naivete. And Lonai just happened to crash right into her world when she was at her most vulnerable.
Section 3. An absurdly expensive courtship. So, once her identity is out there, Sheng Zhao decides she wants to date our protagonist. But there's a huge catch. She has unlimited funds, but absolutely zero experience in romance. The escalation here is just pure deadpan comedy. Because she doesn't know how to flirt, she literally just throws money at every passing comment he makes. He casually complains that walking to class is tiring. Boom. The next morning, there are 10 top-model supercars lined up outside his dorm, complete with a butler. She even offers him a blindingly pink Lamborghini just because she thought he'd like the color. He mentions he's tired of canteen food. A 3-star Michelin chef food truck magically appears on campus exclusively for him. He says the library is too dim. The very next day, the entire university library is refitted with top-tier imported eye protection lighting. He says he misses home. A private jet lands on the university sports field. It's this ridiculous, bewildered chaos as she tries to show affection using literally the only tool she understands: overwhelming wealth. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that massive number 1,000. Because despite all the supercars and private jets, Sheng Zhao reveals what truly won her heart. Early on, back when he thought she was poor, she tried to transfer him 1,000 yuan as a thank you for saving her in the cafeteria. Lonai instantly rejected it. He sent her this long WeChat message lecturing her to save her hard-earned scholarship money for essentials. And Sheng Zhao actually printed that message out and kept it folded in her wallet. She tells him that to her, the most valuable thing wasn't her billions. It was that he was a boy who felt guilty taking 1,000 yuan from a poor girl, but didn't blink twice at a billionaire's fortune. He cared about her well-being, not her money. Section 4. True wealth beyond numbers.
As the relationship matures, all that chaotic courtship slows down into a really genuine connection. Lunai sets a condition for her. They'll officially start dating only if she drops her average student disguise and scores in the top 10 of their final exams. Driven by this, she just transforms into an unstoppable academic force, eventually scoring second place overall, just 3 marks short of first. And yes, Lunai keeps his promise, sealing it with a kiss in the library. But being the boyfriend of a billionaire, that comes with some heavy prejudice. During a really prestigious law firm interview, the interviewer completely dismisses Lunai's hard work, claiming he's only there because of Sheng Zhao's influence. It totally breaks his confidence. But Sheng Zhao doesn't just buy his way in this time. Instead, she fiercely protects his dignity, using her resources to expose the corrupt interviewer who is actually taking bribes from their old bullies. Which leads directly to Lunai's graduation speech as the student representative. Standing at the podium, he delivers this powerful message that really encapsulates the entire journey. He states that true wealth isn't a bank account number, but the goodness in one's soul and their firm resolve. He thanks her for teaching him that even when you're stuck in the mud, you can still look up at the starry sky. Personal value, he finally realized, is never dictated by a floating digital number.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. One quiet evening in their shared apartment, Lunai asks Sheng Zhao this hypothetical question. If you had this superpower and you saw my balance was in the negative, would you still love me? Sheng Zhao doesn't even hesitate. She says yes, because she would see a boy who fights happily every day despite his debts. But then she delivers this final, incredibly heartwarming twist. She tells him that if she saw his negative balance, she would find a way to turn it into a very long, very big number. For example, by adding her name right next to his on the account. And with that brilliant, subtle proposal, we wrap up this amazing story. It reminds us that looking past the external numbers to see the true person underneath, that is the ultimate superpower. So, it leaves us with one final question for you to ponder. If you had this superpower and you saw your partner's balance was in the negative, would you still love them? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.